First things first, Jaylen Brown has been officially traded from the Boston Celtics. The longstanding saga is officially over, and Jaylen Brown is on his way out to the Philadelphia 76ers in exchange for Paul George, 2 first-round picks, and 2 second-round picks. We'll discuss the details of the trade with some more guests in just a second. But first things first, just want to welcome you guys back to the show. I know it's been a little bit since we've been on. Last time we were discussing the firing of Alex Cora and the future of the Boston Red Sox. Obviously, their standing is what it is right now, but this episode will be mostly centered around the Celtics and the future of their franchise, as well as Jaylen Brown, and kind of doing a little bit of a post-mortem of this deal. We're going to have Ian and Angelo of, Celtics blogger on, so we'll have him on to discuss this and hopefully some other guests as well. So, obviously buckle up. We got a crazy episode in store for you. If you're not following Down to the Wire at this point, make sure you follow us on Instagram at down.to-the-wire and on Twitter at down_to-the-wire. So make sure you give us a follow on there and listen on streaming, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So first things first, Jaylen Brown, officially a member of the Philadelphia 76ers, traded in what really amounts to a salary dump, or just a dump of the player in that matter. Paul George, who coming in, looking it up, last time I saw it was, I believe, 36 years of age. If I take a quick look, let me see, Paul George age as we look it up. He was 36, was born, just turned 36 this past May. Joins the Celtics as of right now, could still be flipped as a part of a later deal, remains to be seen. But as we kind of react to this, I'll take it on face value. So Paul George coming in here now, really at the end of the rope of his NBA career. And, frankly, I'll get into this with Ian when we get him on later on in the show. But Paul George, I mean, obviously the main story is Jaylen Brown, and we'll discuss that too. But, just the player that's coming in replacing him, just in my opinion, there's really few and far between, no bigger career losers in the NBA than Paul George. I mean, just someone who, for all the talent that he's had, has accomplished so little in his NBA career. I think that Paul George just epitomizes that. And for all the notoriety that he has accomplished so little in the NBA. And for him to come in here now to Boston, it's just a toxic situation now. I mean, he's failed everywhere he's been. And you trade out the NBA Finals MVP and Jaylen Brown, the guy you traded Pearson Garnett to acquire picks from the Brooklyn Nets to eventually get. And this is the result that you fall into. And just a disgusting display here by the Boston Celtics. A bunch of different angles you can take at this, whether it being, the failed attempt at trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo, to the, really the stain that this puts for Bill Chisholm and his new ownership group coming in here. There's a bunch of different angles you can take at this. But first, I'll just kind of say this. Obviously, a thank you to Jaylen Brown for what he meant for, the Boston Celtics and this franchise, getting them to an NBA championship and really being the alpha of the 2024 team, getting them over the hump, winning that Finals MVP, and being the heartbeat of the team that he was. Obviously, competing alongside Jason Tatum in that great, group that they had there, was an incredible run to watch and be a part of. And it is kind of mind-blowing that only 2 years later, he's on his way out of town after being swept by the very team that he's now going to in the 76ers. Obviously Brown was kind of getting his trade value around the league was really plummeting, the past couple of days, obviously at one point being in a trade for Giannis to now. And, then the Celtics saying that they were demanding 4 first-round picks for the player, and now being traded for a player on the wrong side of 30 and, 2 basically meaningless first-round picks and then 2 second-round picks, which I'll get into that as well. 2 second-round picks and just the second-round pick in general in the NBA. I don't know if there's a more overvalued commodity in the modern just sports world than the NBA second-round draft pick. There is nothing more meaningless, in my opinion. And listen, if you want to point to the, examples of saying, well, Nikola Jokic was a second-round pick, and, Manu Ginobili and Isaiah Thomas, sure. But there's also many more, and those are the exceptions of the rule. Many more times, those are no-name players that will never do anything for your franchise and are going to be G League bench warmers at best. And maybe they crack the end of the rotation, and maybe they're, you know, just just on that bench and on on the actual like active roster. But most of those time, those G League and those second round picks are absolutely meaningless. So I don't know why teams love and favor those as much as they do. I would rather if they just tried, not that I, like the trade. I hate the trade, but just get another first round pick and just say, screw the second round pick. If that's what would have taken, because the Celtics said they wanted four first round picks for Jaylen Brown. It's unfathomable that this is the deal that you come to terms with here. It is sickening that, Paul George is going to be a member of the Boston Celtics, someone who, again, has been a failure at every stop of his NBA career. And what? His greatest accomplishment was, battling it out with that, stacked Heat team in the early 2010s. That is the height of Paul George in his NBA career. It has never been anything above that. And the fact that you traded Jaylen Brown, a cornerstone of the franchise, for this, it's disgusting in my opinion. And now you're going to take a look at it, and they see Jason Tatum, who's going to come back off this Achilles injury, and they have a ton of faith in him that he's going to go out there and perform and post and do what he needs to do. I have some serious doubts and reservations about that. Because listen, he came back and he had some great games down the stretch, but he was limited there. And I think having the ability to play off Jaylen Brown was something that was really special to watch. And now you are now just Eastern Conference semifinal or quarterfinal fodder. That's all you are at this point. You're nothing more than that. If you make it to the second round and maybe get beyond that, good for you. But you are never contending for a championship with the current roster that you have now assembled. You are a worse team today. And you did it for what? To get rid of the money that Jaylen Brown was going to be owed? It's absolutely sickening that this is the move that they try to make here. And it all comes back around to Bill Chisholm and his ownership group, that they've decided to, purchase the team. The Grosbecks got out of the business of, being the owners of the Celtics. Wick and that ownership group are no longer there. And this is the defining moment of Bill Chisholm's ownership group until he shows you otherwise. Because he has just proven that all he cares about is just having just a easy, just reciprocal product that, they don't need to contend for championships, just to be entertaining enough to just sell out the building and sell the jerseys. That is all they care about. And I can't believe that this is what we're looking at right now. Again, it's still so fresh with this happening. I just got back from a round at the golf course just trying to fathom all this. And it's crazy that you look back at this and you see how the deal with Giannis kind of blew up in their face. And I don't think initially that Jaylen Brown was a part of those talks. I think that they were trying to get the deal done, maybe with a package of Derek White, Sam Hauser, some picks, some, younger players mixed into there. And I think in their mind, they could have just been like, all right, this is what a deal for Jaylen Brown could look like, but we're not moving off that. And instead that they go with this deal is just, I don't know. If you wanted to say that you think you could have gotten better with Giannis, it's an argument, but I could understand you trying to make that case and say, you know what, we need to play closer to the rim. We need to do X. We need to all these kind of different things. And it would have been a move that you could have said in the scheme of like us changing our like philosophy as a basketball team, then sure. But this is a dump. It's a dump on the level of Mookie Betts and Rafael Devers with the Red Sox. And it's arguably worse than, you could make a case worse than those two, because listen, Mookie Betts was going to be going into the last year of his deal with the Red Sox. I think that he would have signed had they given him the proper contract, but people argue otherwise. Rafael Devers was kind of fed up and wasn't happy here. Jaylen Brown, according to Shams Charania, never asked for a trade request. He never asked out. And the fact that they turn to this now is unspeakable to me. Whereas you flamed out in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, blowing a 3-1 lead to the 76ers. You did that not because of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, even for that matter. You did it because of your ridiculous three-point philosophy and just shooting yourselves out of games repeatedly. And again, I think you could make a case differently had this been a series that, obviously it went to 7 games and it didn't go the Celtics' way. But it would have been I think you could have made a case for this had it been a more of a back and forth series. The Sixers take a game here, the Celtics take a game there, and it kind of battles itself out, and then you lose in 7 games. The Celtics blew a 3-1 lead, the first team in the franchise's history to ever do that. And that's where you decide to trade one of your franchise cornerstones. After you blow that lead, you were on the doorstep of actually getting to that second round. And despite what people are saying about the Knicks and how good they were, and credit to their championship, an incredible run for them, I think you would have had a good chance against them, despite what people are saying, even with the results of last year. And this is the result that you get now. Whereas you flame out in this philosophy because of your dumb 3-point, just your antics from beyond the arc, and it kills you here. And your choice isn't to do anything about your coach and how that philosophy screwed you in the playoffs, but your choice is to trade Jaylen Brown, who in all minds isn't really a 3-point guy. That's never been his game. Yes, he can shoot them, and he's an NBA player, and he can do it with some efficiency. But when you think of Jaylen Brown, you never think of the 3-point shot. That's never been his game. And that's where you turn to here. It's disgusting. It is utterly disgusting that this is where you get to now. And I mean, like, again, I'm repeating myself here, but that's just how nauseating of a trade that this is. It's unbelievable. Again, we're going to have Ian and Angelo, Celtics blogger, on pretty soon to react to all this. At the time we're recording this on July 1st, the night that this is all going down. We'll have Ian on tomorrow, obviously, as we react to this in real time, getting his, day after kind of thoughts here. But just unbelievable. Just a really sad day for the Boston Celtics. You become the teams that you used to roll over in the Eastern Conference. You become now the Orlando Magics of the league, where, yeah, you have a good star in Paolo Banchero, or you have one of these elite players, but it's never going to amount to anything if this is what you are. And I mean, listen, again, the part that about this trade that sickens me, if you had gotten the draft picks, I mean, I still would have been really pissed off about you moving on from Jaylen Brown, 100%. But just the optics of Paul George joining the Celtics makes me want to vomit. Again, there is not a player that I don't think has lived up to their reputation less, or, has, disappointed more in their career more than Paul George. Maybe you could make a case for his former teammate in Joel Embiid for how, little he's come up short in the playoffs, and, his, lack of, his lack of ability to actually produce. But Paul George, for his career, has been a glorified failure. I mean, obviously he was electric when he came on the scene in Indiana. He was a great, franchise cornerstone there. Went to OKC, was a failure there. The experiment with him and Kawhi Leonard in LA has, completely flamed out, and that, went south very quickly. And obviously the Paul George trade to, from OKC to LA is now infamous, with it having SGA and all those, that, glut of draft picks involved, and how that's, turned into, how that's kind of ended up for the Thunder there. But just, oh my God, I am stunned by this move. It is disgusting that we are at this point now. I don't know. It's kind of my initial thoughts right here on the trade, on Down to the Wire. I know maybe we'll try to get Matt Carvalho from 990 WBOB on. But yeah, that's just first initial thoughts there. Jaylen Brown, Finals NBA, 2024 NBA Finals MVP, gone from the Celtics here. And you look at this now, and how can you not say that this is it's a franchise altering move? Brad Stevens, I think it's a massive hit to his reputation. It changes the way that you view Bill Chisholm and his ownership group, despite however he wanted to talk about himself being a Boston, a local, and a diehard for the team. It shatters that facade. He's a corporate. He's just tied in there. I want to say more about him, but I don't want to get in trouble. But he just utterly disgusted with this move. So that's I guess where we'll leave this at the moment.